Welcome to the Magic Garden, where we're here for another Sunday Soulful Story. And today we're telling the story of how I met a fairy queen in the Magic Garden. So there's a backstory, some important factors to know before I get into the hows and whys and wherefores of what happened. So when we were moving to Santa Barbara and we bought this house, I thought we wanted to be in an area called Hope Ranch. And we ended up buying our house on the Riviera. When we bought this house almost 17 years ago, the garden was in total decline. It was actually dying. It was an overgrown jungle. We had no idea what we had. We had moved from Boston. And in the back of my mind, I was thinking, oh, in 5 years or so, when my husband sells his home health care company back east, then we'll buy our house in Hope Ranch, which is closer to the water, and they have horses and different things. I'm very glad we're not there. But that was in the back of my mind, like in 5 years, then we'll move to Hope Ranch. That's an important aspect of the story. Another important aspect is that the original owners built the house. They took 3 lots, made it into one, so there's an acre, a little over an acre of land here. They built the house. They lived here for 30 years. The second owner built the gardens, and she and her husband lived here for 30 years. I call her the garden guru. She built the gardens, okay? And then there were these interim people that just bought it to remodel, flip it, but there was this 30-year stewardship. So that's another important aspect. And then the third important backstory aspect is that when we first moved here, I stood in the garden and said, we're going to pull a Findhorn here. Now, Findhorn is an eco-village spiritual center in Scotland, in the hinterlands of northern Scotland, that started as a garden. To grow food, and turned into this huge spiritual community. And basically the principles of Findhorn are that you listen to your divine guidance within, that you cooperate with nature, communicate with nature, work with nature, not in a dominating way, but a respectful working with, in relationship and partnership. And that activities that you do, your work is love in action. So those are the principles of Findhorn. And so I said, we're going to pull a Findhorn here, meaning we're going to like do some miracles here, but I didn't know what or how or anything like that. But something shifted in that moment. It's like I opened a portal and I connected with nature. With the earth. So those are the backstories that are important to remember when I tell you how and where I met the fairy queen. So we're actually going to go down to the lower part of the garden and I'll show you where it happened. So come with me down to the wild area in the Magic Garden. In the UK, they say that every garden needs a wild area where the nature spirits can come and go. So in the Magic Garden, this corner is our wild area. It's also where we have compost. We've also got spider webs. But this is the wild area where the nature spirits come and go. This is a compost that Joyce, who set up the garden like 40 years ago or something, more than that, she put in the compost. We use it, we build it and use it in the garden. So the day that I met the fairy queen, we had lived here for 3 months. We had moved in. My husband was out of the country in the Himalayas. I was here home alone. A friend was visiting from up north, and we were walking down in the garden, and she said, I don't know why, but I'm being drawn to this corner. Now, I had already said, we're going to pull a Findhorn here. So, and I already felt connected with nature spirits, not as deeply as I am now, but definitely connected. And also, I at that point was very connected with angels and you know, woo-woo metaphysical things. And I get messages from on high, and I get images in my head. But this day, I walked down these steps, and I arrived at the bottom of the steps in the wild area, and I was suspended. It's like time and space just altered. There was like this time warp, and I was literally suspended. I knew I was safe. I wasn't scared, but I literally just couldn't really move. It's like everything was just stopped in time and space. And in front of me, so this is a California oak, in the arm of this oak tree, there was this big, huge cylinder of light. And I saw it with my physical eye in 3D. It was a totally new experience for me. I had never seen anything like that before. But think Star Trek Beam Me Up, Scotty. It was exactly like that. It was like this pillar of light with little sparkles in it. And it was like a huge pillar, round, in the oak tree. I'm standing here, and in the pillar, inside this pillar of light, this tube of light, was this beautiful, radiant being. So think Galadriel in Lord of the Rings. Think Glinda in The Wizard of Oz, but update her. Instead of a bubble, she's in a tube of light, sparkly light, and more modern fairy dresses. Yeah. Anyway, so you get the idea. So this beautiful radiant being was inside this tube of light. And I just, from my heart, I said, who are you and how can I help you? So remember the Hope Ranch thing that I thought in 5 years I want to move to Hope Ranch? And remember the 30-year stewardship with the 2 previous owners. Those are important components. So she's there. She says, my name is Ariana, and we need a commitment. That's all she said. And I felt like she had just taken a laser beam and sliced open my heart and saw right into my soul. And at that point, it's like, Hope Ranch, where's that? No, I'm home. And before this, my husband and I had moved every 4 to 6 years. So in that moment, I knew that this was it. We're home. Bury me in the compost. I'm not moving ever again. And it was just such a loving exchange. She was just this magnificent, beautiful, loving presence, but she wasn't going to mess around. If I wasn't committing to being here, she wasn't going to waste her time. But what am I going to say? No. So at that moment, I felt all the nature spirits come back to the property. I felt them, I saw them in my mind's eye, sort of like Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs. Like, think, hi ho, it's off to work we go. They all came back with their little shovels and picks and hoes and rakes and things. And that was the beginning of my stewardship in the Magic Garden. And it has been an adventure and continues to be an adventure since then. But Ariana is, I have found out since that she's a fairy queen, because I was thinking she's as close to an angel as you could get without being an angel. So she's a fairy queen. She's one of 12 pairs of fairy kings and queens. She's way more than just this garden, way more than California and North America. She's in the nature spirits, the devas, the fairies. They're in a different dimension, and they're more in their light bodies. So she had to really, she was in her tube so that she could come down into 3D, third dimension, for me to be able to see her in 3D to get my attention. And what I've learned since then is they suspended me so that, 1, I wouldn't run away, which I wouldn't have, but 2, that I wouldn't have reached in and tried to beam up with her. So that's the story of meeting Ariana, the fairy queen, in the Magic Garden, and she is available to help with anyone who is kind-hearted and open to working with the unseen realms of the earth, the nature spirits. Yeah, so if you've listened to this whole thing and gotten this far, then Ariana is opening her heart to you, and it's up to you if you want to open your heart to her and to the nature spirits, because they are real and they want to work with us and help to save the earth, basically. So that's it. Fairies are real and they love kind-hearted humans. Thank you.